remodel and repair of the GLOCK 17 MOS. This gun came to me with some problems that the trigger wasn't working properly. Double taps were occurring without being intended upon, and the flashlight rear door was broken, and it just generally needed some love and attention. Started with the trigger. The most obvious glaring problem was the user had removed the trigger safety mechanism in the center of the trigger. When you drop the gun, if this isn't present, you can have a discharge from the inertia. We removed the two pins in the front. Set those aside. Lift the locking block up and out of the way. This made room for us to pull the slide lock lever out of the way. Remove the pin for the action. This one was a little bit difficult to remove because of the wrong length pin being used. Once it was removed, pull it out, set it to the side. With some leverage, lift it up. Ejector is usually a good place to hold on to. Lift the unit up and out of the pistol. The new Apex trigger will be replacing the existing trigger and trigger bar, and we'll be placing their connector in. We're also dealing with the flashlight on this. The Streamlight TLR1 HL is a great light, but this one had a broken rear door. I've found this to be one of the most common failure places. This one needed to be removed. The rear door taken off of the pistol, and we ordered a remote contour switch to fix the door with, making it not only upgraded but repaired. The remote contour switch is part number 0. Actually, make that 69300. I found this on Amazon, but you can order it directly from Streamlight as well. I had to pull the pin to remove the old door. A pair of pliers made this simple to do, and pushed it the rest of the way out with a screwdriver flat side. With the door removed, I saw that not only had it failed, but it actually had broken in two. The whole door just simply fell apart. I actually hadn't seen this failure before. It's usually the top lug snaps away from the plastic where it clamps shut. The new remote contour switch has a small notch. Put it in the bottom, press forward with a substantial amount of squeezing force to it, and use the old latch to clamp it shut. There we go. The existing toggles still can be used to turn the light on and off, but your grip with no extra manipulation can turn the light on. Instead of putting this on the gun and cinching it down super tight, possibly damaging the light or the frame, just put a couple drops of medium strength thread lock on by squeezing the mechanism so you can see your threads, and then letting it dry overnight. Again, do not use permanent thread lock or high strength. Just a medium strength temporary thread lock is all you need. Put it in place, make sure it's fully seated, and then snug it up. Again, do not over tighten it. It's not needed if you actually remember to use the thread lock. Before you do all this effort, it's a good idea to put in some fresh batteries. Now for the installation of the apex trigger. Again, the trigger and trigger bar are included, and we'll replace the old broken one. Make sure you keep the new parts separated from the old parts so you don't accidentally install the wrong things. If you squeeze it together and turn it, it pops right out, and the spring is an S shape. Make sure you take note of the configuration before you take it apart so you can put it back together in the correct form. Set the old trigger and trigger bar aside. You'll reuse that spring. Again, it is the shape of an S. This was an aftermarket connector. Simply push it in with a punch from the side and it pops right out. Good chance now to clean this all up if it's been a while. Get the metal filings and gunpowder, etc. that's left behind cleaned off of your gun. The apex trigger, it's a flat face and it has the middle insert which is needed. This is a safety mechanism that the gun was designed to have. The new connector slides in place. The short elbow tab goes down into the notch. Put a drop of oil on the face of this. This is where metal rubs to metal between your trigger bar and connector. Doesn't need a ton of oil, just a drop. I had a little trouble here with the S-hook popping the bottom off as I put the top on. No big deal. Just make sure when you have it all popped back together, it's in an S shape. You'll hear it snap in place. Rotate it as you drop it down inside, and it should be all together. As one unit, place the trigger, the action down inside of the gun. Makes a positive snap as it drops down into place. Take your locking block, slide it in, arms are facing forward. When it all goes together, you want to make sure that your slide lock has downward tension on the spring. Put your top pin in first. Use the edge of a punch or an arm wrench tool, and you'll hear it positively snap in place when it's at the right depth. Next is your slide lock lever. Be careful with that little spring. Slide it in place. Look to see that there's no obstructions and slide your pin in from the right to left. Works easiest for me. Sometimes if you take your punch and just wiggle it around while you're pushing it in from the other side, it'll slide in place easily. Again, shoulder it with your punch to make sure it's even. Test it, make sure it has spring tension going back down. Otherwise your gun will shoot once and lock open to the rear. Don't forget to put the pin in at the back strap. You can function test it by pushing forward with your index finger as I did on the top, pushing rearward to the trigger so that it releases. Put your barrel. Last part for the apex trigger is to remove the internals of the slide. Yeah, I forgot the pin. Here I go. It's not the right one, but it'll do until the new part arrives. The customer didn't know where the other pin was. We had a little surprise with this. I didn't know yet that it was going to be seized up from too much thread lock from a previous installation and a screw of improper length pushing down into part of the firing pin safety assembly. I fought with it for a while before I realized what the problem was and had to order some parts. The problem was with the extractor depressor plunger, extractor depressor plunger spring, and inside that is a spring-loaded bearing. It didn't want to come out. You have to get it out of the way in order to get your extractor, your firing pin safety, and the firing pin safety spring so that you can put in the new firing pin safety with the Apex kit.